Don't want to say mine is short and sweet, but I'll try to make it short and sweet. um, so I did my project on using video modeling to increase pretend play skills to one child with autism. My abstract. So the purpose of this study was to examine the usage of video modeling to increase pretend play skills in one female participant. She was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. She attended a CABAS accredited school Monday through Friday for at least 6 hours a day. The video modeling program was used to see if the participant increased their pretend play skills by using video modeling. The independent variable were of the study was the specific, good lord, play scripts for each pretend play set, Barbie house, and then a shopping cart with plastic play food and dishes. The dependent variable for the study were the participants' responses from each video after the lesson, after each session, and a number of scripted verbalizations, scripted play actions, unscripted verbalizations, and unscripted play actions were studied. There was a multiple baseline design with one participant across the two play sets to see the effectiveness of video modeling. There were 3 phases: baseline, intervention, and maintenance probes. The results of the study indicated that participant acquired the phrases of the verbalizations and play actions at a steady rate for the Barbie house, but at the time of the data collection and all of the limitations, the second play set was only ran for a couple of days. So it's hard to tell if the participant would have acquired the phrases of the verbalizations and play actions for the second set. The results, the results also indicated that Mann's tax and sequelics and conversational units did not occur during intervention, but occurred during the after probes. Let's see. In the literature review, I'll just skim through. It's pretty much saying that pretend play is a skill that can emerge early in typical developing children, and it's important for developing the skills needed for social relationships, language, and communication. Play is critical for the development of young children, is an important part of their daily routine. It's an integral part of a child development, facilitate social, emotional, and linguistic development. Thought that was a really good quote to put in there. And observational learning is very similar to learn by doing method. Observational learning is used for the acquirement of different social skills that will help transfer cultural knowledge and tool use from one individual to another. So pretty much video modeling. Observational learning has many types of modeling, such as video modeling, peer modeling, and vicarious reinforcement. It's also an instructional strategy in which the child watches to perform a target skill on video, then practices that skill. So research supports that effectiveness of video modeling for teaching children with autism in variety of different skills, including communication skills, daily living skills, play skills, and social interaction skills. And then it goes on to say that Charlotte and Christie showed that the video modeling resulted in faster acquisition of skills, was more cost effective than the live modeling. And then McCoy and Hermanson, I probably butchered that name, but oh well. Video modeling is a behavioral technique that uses videotapes rather than live scenarios for the child to observe, thus allowing the focus of the attention to be concentrated on the stimulus tape instead of the live. It also goes on to say that Roseberg studied 2 different types of video modeling, known and unknown peers. So in this study, the 3 preschoolers with autism were shown 2 videos of a model washing his or her hands. The first video of the study was a commercial video, and the second video was a customized, and then the results, they compared the 2. Dowdrick expressed that the videos can be different behaviors, such as social cues, social and community behavior, and task completion sequences. He expresses this thought in his book using videos, psychological and social applications, which is actually a really good book, by the way. Video modeling can be used to teach pretend play skills to preschool children with autism. And it's also teach students of very different skills, such as purchasing skills, daily living skills, conversational units, not conversational units, conversational skills, and also perspective taking. And all these names, I'm just butchering them today. Well, anyway, they use video modeling to teach play skills to preschool with autism. They included both verbal and motor responses. This is the one that I replicated. So the purpose of the study was to extend those 2 studies by teaching one child with autism to engage in pretend play, which included verbal narration and motor actions with toy play sets with used figurines and objects. Each play scripts were developed based on observing typically developing children playing with 2 pretend play skills Barbie and shopping cart with plastic food and dishes set. For the video modeling instruction, the video play scripts were videotaped and used to teach each play skills to one participant diagnosed with autism. Now my method, getting down to the nitty gritty. The participant, she was 7 years old with ASD. She receives 30 hours of ABA therapy, attends a CARD accredited clinic Monday through Friday, 9 to 3. Her level of verbal behavior was emerging listener speaker according to her VB-MAP and LCAR. She has full sentence commands and communicate wants and needs, but required prompting to initiate requests. The student also interacts appropriately with adults and peers. She enjoys interactions and play games appropriately with peers. Her cusp in her repertoire were conditioned reinforcement, 2D stimuli, conditioned reinforcement for faces, voices, parroting, and conditioned reinforcement for see-do. Her defects include deficits, I should say, auditory matching, conditioned reinforcement for listening to story content, uni and bidirectional naming, extension of naming, self-talk, conversational units, and solitary play, say-do correspondence, conversational units, print cusp, and social learning. This participant was chosen for the experiment because she had limited number of repertoires of pretend play and never chose pretend play skills in the natural environment. She never had prior experience of using video modeling, but shows interest and intention to video model instruction. The setting took place at a CABA accredited clinic 5 miles outside of a major city. It's open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. The clinic has several different classrooms that are located in the building. These classrooms are based off of the students' verbal behavior. So each class is based on the child's verbal behavior. And the clinic has staffing ratios of 1-to-1, one client to one therapist. Study took place during the school day, emerging listener and speaker classroom with 4 children varying in ages from 5 to 7 years old. 3 of the children were diagnosed with autism spectrum, while 1 typically developing student. The classroom included tables, chairs, cupboards, iPads, and a play area. Due to COVID-19, the student and therapist had their own supplies, stimuli and toys ready to go, included table, chairs, iPad, preferred toys. The classroom was one-on-one instruction with the clients with ASD. Each of the line therapists were out of training and earned at least a bachelor's degree. The pretend play baseline and training sessions were conducted in a separate room within the participants' clinic. This room contained a large table, one of the pretend play sets. The pretend play sessions were conducted at a large table, and a video model was presented using an iPad. The sessions were run daily. All sessions were videotaped to score later. All right, now here are the materials. There are 2 play sets, so Barbie house and the shopping cart. The Barbie house was 3 stories. It was actually a really cool Barbie house. I would play with it if I was 7. It included an elevator, a walk-in closet, a living room with a television set, a bathroom, a kitchen, a swimming pool, and even a garden. How cool is that? The character that was included was a Barbie doll. The shopping cart included plastic food, play, and dishes. The food included various different amounts of food. And the character that was used was also a Barbie doll, but also need to edit it and put different figurines. So a male figure, a kid figure, and a female. So the independent variable were the specific play scripts for each pretend play set. So Barbie house and the plastic food and dishes. These scripts were required for the students to hold each character and also speak for that character. The characters also have to manipulate the materials. For example, putting the Barbie doll in an elevator to go up, or feeding the Barbie doll an apple with the plastic food. An adult was videotaped acting out some of the sequence of pretend play. The video model will be shown to the child, then immediately after viewing the video modeling script, the therapist told the participant it's time to play. And then the child was given 5 minutes to play with the pretend play sets. The therapist stood behind the child. No reinforcement or prompting was given by the therapist during baseline, but during the intervention reinforcement, it was given on a fixed ratio. The independent variables for the study were the participants' responses from the video after each session, the number of scripted verbalizations, scripted play actions, unscripted verbalizations, unscripted play actions, man's tacticals, and conversational units were added. And these are just the definitions of each behavior that I was looking for. So not gonna run all through it. It's just a scripted verbalizations. They're vocal statements that have point-to-point correspondence that match the statements of the video. The scripted play actions were modeled motor responses, so it also matched the video. Unscripted was also known as verbal statements that did not meet the definition of a scripted verbal statement, but they were still in the context. And unscripted play actions were the ones that were seen in the video, but play actions that were completed with a different character or a play action that was not modeled, but it was still in context of the toy. We also did man's, tactical, and conversational units, which I'll get to a little later. The experimental design was a multiple baseline design with one participant across 2 play sets to establish experimental control and to assess the effectiveness of video modeling in order to see if the participant increased their pretend play skills. The participant required to meet criteria on each play set in order to continue to the next. So for the criterion for introducing the next pretend play set was at least 10 verbal, scripted, unscripted verbalizations, and at least 10 motor responses, unscripted or scripted, per sessions. So the probes were conducted prior to the introduction of each play set. So the baseline was presented with the toys on the table and was given to the instruction of it's time to play with the play set, with each play set. So the baseline sessions were a maximum of 5 minutes. Therapist stood behind the child and was not given any instructions or physical cues. If the kid tries to leave the room, they were redirected back to the pretend play set. If the child tried to keep leaving the area, the baseline session was terminated. During the baseline, a number of scripted verbalizations, scripted play actions, unscripted verbalizations, and unscripted play actions were recorded. For the intervention, it's the same thing as the baseline. So after the video modeling was done, I presented the iPad that contained 1 video modeling of the play set. After that was done, the child immediately directed to the play area, play materials, and was told it's time to play with the set. The duration of each session was maximum of 5 minutes, and the therapist stood behind the child. And to the mastery probes, once the participant reached criterion with the video modeling, mastery probes were conducted without video to see if the participant demonstrated at least 10 verbalizations and at least 10 motor responses. Inter-observer agreement, I had 7 TPRAs were given throughout the day's experiment. I kind of wanted a little more with our clinic. We were kind of, don't want to say low on supervisors, but it was just really hard for me to get that fidelity going with that TPRA. So the results, scripted and unscripted verbalizations for the participant are shown in the graph. The participant showed low levels of scripted verbalizations during baseline across the 2 play sets. But following the video intervention, scripted verbalizations for the Barbie house increased from a baseline of 0 to a level of 10, which was really good. Scripted verbalizations for the plastic food items and dishes increased from a baseline to 0 to a level of 8 so far, because with the limitation, she's been gone for a month. She's been in India. We weren't being able to keep going with this project as much as I would like to. Scripted verbalizations for the plastic food. Oh, I said that already. Following the video modeling intervention, unscripted verbalizations also increased from a 0 to a level of 10. And like I said, at the time of this data collection, the second play set was only ran for a couple of days, so it's hard to tell if the participant would have acquired the phases of scripted verbalizations and play actions for the second set, which was the food and dishes. So the results also indicated that the man's tactical and conversational units did not occur during the intervention itself, and little to none during free play with peers. And here's other graphs. If you can see up here, this was verbalizations. Oh, I just realized I didn't put the post probe. Oops, I will fix that. Verbalizations of the Barbie house, play actions. So the blue was scripted verbalizations, the orange was unscripted, and then play actions, so scripted play actions and unscripted play actions. And this was with the food and the drink. Food and the drink, she's kind of doing okay on, but like I said, we couldn't finish because she's in India and it's going to be until May. So that's unfortunate. And here's the scripts that I was talking about. So female Barbie, play action, she walks to the stove, verbalization, I'm cooking dinner, I'm Barbie, or I'm Ken, I'm taking a nap, wah wah for the baby Barbie. It's just some script that I knew that she could say, or maybe she was having a little bit of difficulty just to try to push her a little bit more. And here's the plastic food and drink. It was considered with male figures, female figures, kid figures, all different types of things. She really enjoyed this one much more than the Barbie house. And a discussion. So it was to extend those research studies by teaching one child with autism to engage in pretend play, which included variable narration and motor actions with toy play sets, which included figures and actions. So by implementing the video modeling program, the student can increase their verbal narration and motor responses with play toy sets. Prior to the intervention, like I said before, she would not engage in pretend play in the natural environment. She would pick a toy, but not use any verbal narration or motor actions with that toy. And based on the intervention, the participant showed an increase and even met criterion for the Barbie Playhouse and is currently showing progress towards a second play at a variable and increasing rate. And I think that, well, more discussion because I'm a writer. So it's the participant viewed the video in its entirety to an intervention session. Despite the presentation of many vocal and motor responses per play set, participant acquired most of the model responses that she had of unscripted play actions and verbalizations that was not modeled in the video. And during the intervention for the Barbie Playhouse set, the participant acquired a total of 10. And it also should be noted that during the food and play drink set, the participant had repetitive patterns of speech and motor behavior, which was really interesting. Like she would often script what she heard in the previous set instead of verbalizing what was in the current play set. So for the food set, she would mock or imitate what was in the previous set. And I'm like, how did you remember that from a couple weeks ago? But it was really cool to see. So I would mark that as like unscripted, but I couldn't count it because for it to be scored as correct, and unscripted verbal response had to be at least 2 words in length and differ from the scripted verbalization. So due to these responses, definitions, some novel or unscripted responses made by the participant in the study were not scored as correct. And some of the strengths, they were positive strengths that can be seen in ABA programs that teach video modeling to children with autism. Some researchers state that video modeling improves play skills, self-help skills, independent living skills, language skills, and perspective taking skills. However, there were some limitations. COVID-19 and 6 feet away, only one participant was chosen for the study to adhere to the 6 feet mandate. Another limitation included the participant missing several days of intervention due to sickness or out for vacation around 1 month. Like I said, she went to India, not coming back until beginning of May. And participant was often late to arrive at the clinic, and participant was also prompt dependent to completing certain tasks and activities. During this data collection, the experimenter did not gather data of MANS, TACs, conversational units, and sequelics within the natural environment, but the experimenter did, however, measure the correct learn units to criterion and compared them to pre and post probes. Now, some researchers state some limitations in regard to video modeling, and I also had these limitations. They state that video modeling can be dependent on model used, which would then lead to ethical concerns. Some technical issues may arise, which they did, within the video itself or while models were filming the video. The video modeling can lead to sensitivity with the models or the individual viewing the models. However, video modeling is a great technique within observational learning, but requires really close attention to detail. Future research could continue the video modeling program to see if participants' amount of verbal narration and play sequence increases with more play sets. There was a functional relationship shown between the amount of mastered STOs and the number of correct verbal narration and play sets. Another future research could also have another experiment with the same participant that counts MANS, TACs, conversational units, and sequelics throughout the school day to see if there was a functional relationship between the amount of masters, STOs, and the number of correct verbal operands. Future research could also replicate this research by using repetitive behavior. So effectiveness of video modeling as a treatment procedure to increase pretend play skills was demonstrated in one participant. Both unscripted and unscripted play and verbalizations were acquired. Moreover, no error correction procedures were implemented at any point during the intervention. The present findings indicate that video modeling can be effective and efficient program. And that's pretty much saying the same things over. I think that's double. My goodness. And those are my references.
Awesome job. Very nice, Courtney. Very, very nice. All right.
So.
Any thoughts or questions to start off with for Courtney? Nobody. Let's see. Can you kill the sharing?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry. All right. Okay, good. So I want to, first of all, Courtney, well done, very thorough. I thought that the structure of your lit review was very helpful. I thought how you went through observational learning, how you went through kind of the significance of the significance of video modeling, as well as like how we kind of got to it, which is really cool. But did all of your research, and this is a loaded question, did all of your research support the use of video modeling?
Not mostly all of it, but I want to say like there's some of them that had more like limitations of video modeling, and I kind of like wanted to put that in there, but that's why I put it underneath like the limitations with one of the researchers, just because I find that really important, because I also had limitations, so I wanted to make sure that I was putting that within that section.
Okay, so I do think that when there's a significant body of research that presents consistent limitations for a tactic, and this goes for everybody, putting a section for that in the lit review, I think, can be really, really helpful. Especially, I'm not saying that you did or didn't do this, but if you are addressing one of those limitations, then you want to hammer that it exists at the start. So anytime you are doing any sort of research that kind of addresses a known flaw in a tactic or a study, you want to put that up front, so that in the back of the reader's mind, they're not like, well, what about this one little issue that we see? Because you talk about, you did talk about the peers and just some of those concerns, and you didn't really address any of those like head on. Like that wasn't the purpose of your study, so that's fine. But when you do find those kind of common concerns with a tactic, don't be afraid to put those issues in the lit review. Your lit review doesn't have to be, look, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Your lit review, you want your lit review to be a total view of the current research. All right.
Cool. So I'll go ahead and add that, just because I already have it in my limitations. All I have to do is just put it a little bit more lengthy in the literature review.
Yeah, I think that would be that would make it that much stronger. Good. Okay, and then the question that I want to ask is, video modeling is I don't want to say a common tactic, because we don't use it so much. It's one of those ones where it's like, when we think about it, you're like, oh shit, why didn't I think about that 2 months ago? This might be a really good opportunity for that. We selected video modeling for a specific kind of niche reason related to the amount of social reinforcement that this participant contacts. And we needed a way to deliver instruction for this particular skill without an instructor present, right? And that's how we kind of landed on video modeling. But in general, with video modeling, and I know we didn't get a chance to really talk about observational learning, the social learning custom capabilities, and this is opening up for everybody. What do you guys think is kind of the underlying, I don't want to say principle, but what are the underlying behaviors? How can we explain successful video modeling in particular from a behavior analytic perspective? What is happening that makes video modeling as powerful as it is, or can be as powerful as it is? What do you guys think? I'll qualify this two ways. One, I'm not fishing for a particular answer. And two, I don't think this is a direct answer. I don't think this is something that we've like directly covered as it relates to, video modeling. So I want, put it all together. Why does video modeling work? And when it doesn't work, why not? What's missing? Clarissa.
So I think of like imitation, so like
Mhm.
generalized imitation when it comes to videos. But I think the observing responses for the actions and in some cases the voices also is relevant for video modeling and its efficacy.
What separates video modeling from live action
I had another
modeling?
and it has to do with that. It's the technology component of it.
Okay.
Is that these electronic devices these days are most often selecting out young
Selecting.
learners' attention, right? They're a source of
Selecting.
reinforcement for them.
Selecting.
What?
Selecting.
What did I say?
You said selecting out. I've gotten this correction before, and I don't give it to you guys enough. I used selecting out in a paper one time, and the reviewers wrote back saying selecting out means going extinct.
Okay.
So the opposite of what we want to say. So selecting, but
I
go.
appreciate your correction. So yeah, so it's selecting their attention because it is viewed as a source of reinforcement in most cases.
Courtney, in your...
And that's oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was going to ask, I think, what you were about to say. So go ahead.
She expressed when we did like try to figure out like conditional reinforcement for her, we were playing around with it. And that is one of like, not necessarily just the iPad. She loves TikTok. She loves dances. She loves anything to do with like a video. Like we were just the other day before she went to India. We were on the TV and I put a concert, like it was a little app that you can put on from your, what I'm trying to say, you can screen like a TikTok. And when I'm going to tell you her eyes lit up, that's when I knew it was like, okay, video modeling may or may not work. And that's when I decided, I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and try to see.
Yeah, and I think that that concept of that what you're talking about, Clarissa, I'm not sure has been directly measured. It's something that we all assume, and that's actually what I was going to ask Courtney. Is did you have any? Did you come across any research that measured conditional reinforcement for observing responses for technology?
I have not, and that's very interesting that you said that.
So it's, again, we definitely assume it's there. I think every single one of us would have an easier time believing that iPads select observing responses more so than 2D stimuli, right? But what we don't know, I don't think definitively, and I'm sure research is and has been done, I just don't know of it yet, is looking at really identical rates of acquisition of identical stimuli where the only difference is technology versus handheld. I know that learning faster through technology exists, like that is a thing, but I don't know how well controlled the stimuli are. But I don't think when it comes to video modeling, I don't think that the observing responses are based on the technology are the only component. I think you're definitely barking up the right tree, but I don't know if it's just the fact that it's on an iPad alone is what's controlling what we see when we see video modeling. I don't have any data to support that, but I think it's more than that. What else? What other components, definitely in that realm, might be impacting the effect of video modeling?
I'm thinking, like, is it scripted? Like, is it, yeah, I'm thinking that way for whatever reason. Like, if it's, like if the videos are all scripted, and so, like, I mean, that would be very beneficial.
How are you thinking? I know how I'm interpreting what you're saying, but expand on what you're thinking of when you're thinking of scripted.
When I'm thinking about scripting, I'm thinking like the social interactions have been like, yeah, there's a script for those social interactions, like how you go about with dealing with like a situation. I read an article one time where they were using video modeling to teach safety skills, such as like stopping at a stop sign, or stopping at a stop sign, knowing like the green light, red light, yellow light to to go, to stop, to yield.
Are you thinking of just the fact that there is that really consistent repetition when you're watching a video?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And I where my mind immediately went related to that is just the history that some of these kids have, our kid included, of acquiring scripts through videos. So when you take a stimulus that has some conditioned reinforcement value and you stick it on a screen where you have this history of contacting script stimuli, there's a lot of conditioning happening right there. And you put yourself on a screen and the kid looks at you and then looks at the screen and it's like, oh my God, you're where I want you to be. And it's not just that it's the iPad, it's what are the stimuli that come out of the iPad. And I can listen over and over and over and over and memorize and do the repetition thing. I think that's definitely part of it.
And it was
I don't know. I feel like that there's something different happening with video modeling. I really don't know.
What you mean by that? I'm sorry.
I'm thinking along the lines of like there are fewer stimuli that distract in a video model. There are fewer just stimuli in the environment to create setting events versus an in-person. You see what I'm saying? Like when you set up an imitation scenario in a classroom, you still have all the stimuli that exist in the classroom that the child has an instructional history with, that distract. It's almost like going, Clarissa, with what you're referring to. It's almost like the value, or part of the value of the technology, is it blocks out all the things that don't matter. There's literally nothing else that I have to attend to except this screen. But if I'm a child with autism who has a, forget that. Forget that. If I am watching a how-to YouTube video versus being shown how to do something, this is going to be weird. My face is going to get really close, but I can just be like this. Okay, I do that and that and that, and I don't have to worry about anything else that's happening. And I can rewind and I can do that. I can manipulate in a different way than if someone's showing me it. And that seems almost counterintuitive to me because, like, you know, show me how to do something. But when someone shows me how to work a tool, it's like one shot and then it's done. And then I feel bad if I have to ask them to like there's the social.
Yeah, the social component and like the speaker and listener too, because when you're being told to do something, you're just following directions, right? That's just verbally mediating, but it's going more straight to contingency shaped, I guess.
How about a history of lack of punishing consequences coming from a video? I can try things because videos don't give me corrections. And Courtney, you brought that up, which is a component of observational learning. I can practice something without the fear of correction because someone else is going to get the correction. And I can observe that too. I don't know. I find, sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
No, go ahead.
No.
So like without just using video modeling, you know the participant I'm talking about.
Mhm.
She was even, it's even comes to the point where she likes the correction, like sometimes, like within whatever program that she's working on. And I was like, I was very, very, very interested in doing video modeling because I was like, well, I don't know how it's going to go. And that was my biggest fear. Like, I don't know how it's going to go.
Mhm.
But it actually went very well. And I wish she would come back so I can finish. But I don't think that's happening, but we'll see. But it was very interesting to see. And she was even repeating the one thing with her repetitive behaviors is that she was repeating other play sets. And I'm like, how did you do that? But I was trying to get her to focus on the one of the other play sets, but she just kept doing unscripted and play actions of a other one. And that's when I was like, look, watch this one because I think because it was when we came back from break, and so it was kind of like she had that in her mindset that she was still on the other one. But anyway, she did good, and I also found out that I actually caught her looking at my video because I'm on the same iPad. She goes, "Miss Courtney, that's you!" And I literally was almost in tears. It was cute.
Yeah, like that's the thing. The oh my god, right? Like that has, and it obviously there's a novelty component to that game that can wear off, but it, I don't know, like what gets us to that point where these horrible home videos that we make are an effective teaching tool, you know? I don't have an answer. I think it's really interesting that, you know, obviously the role that technology plays. A colleague of mine, Katie Baker, did her dissertation was on the effects of video modeling for the acquisition of social listener cusps, and her results were very, very, very mixed. And I think that when you are looking at a larger behavior as it relates to video modeling, the control is hard. The prerequisites are hard. I don't think it's the type of thing that you can just throw at any kid and they're going to succeed with it. So, all right, I'll stop pontificating. Very nice job, Courtney. That was a great one. That was really, really good. All right, Christine, you good? Okay. Should be able to share your screen. Start whenever you are ready.
Okay, can you see it? Okay. Okay, so I did my project on the use of a high probability instructional sequence to promote vocal imitation. Let's see. So nearly all children begin to acquire a vocabulary by the age of 2. However, as many as 50% of those diagnosed with ASD do not develop spoken language and require intensive interventions. To promote first instances of speech in children with autism, educators often begin by teaching imitative vocal behavior. Manned and tact training procedures have been shown to be effective in teaching vocal verbal speech to children with ASD and developmental disabilities when combined with echoic training. However, the establishment of vocal imitation skills is a crucial first step. When children do not already have a vocal imitation repertoire, additional interventions may be necessary. Shaping and time delay are common tactics that have been used to increase vocal imitation in children with autism. However, these procedures may be ineffective in some cases, such as when a child emits low levels of compliance. An antecedent-based intervention that has been used to increase compliance is the high probability or high P instructional sequence. So the high probability instructional sequence consists of the presentation of several tasks or instructions that an individual is highly likely to comply with, immediately followed by the presentation of a low probability task that the individual is unlikely to comply with. It was originally developed based on Nevin's metaphor of behavioral momentum. Mace et al. Described the high P instructional sequence as establishing a momentum of compliant behavior in an individual that may continue when they are presented with a low P instruction. In a recent review of literature, Lipschultz and Wilder recommended the following when implementing the high P sequence. High P instructions should be empirically identified prior to use. So you want to be 100% certain that they are high P instructions. Inter-trial latency should be no longer than 1 to 15 seconds. So you want to present those high P instructions really rapidly. Any stimuli associated with the low P instruction, if the participant does not comply with the high P instructions, should be removed. And reinforcement should be delivered contingent upon compliance to both the high P and low P instructions. Esch and Freiling compared the effects of leisure and maintenance high P sequences on compliance to 3 low P requests for a 6-year-old boy with autism. Examples of the low P instructions included put all your monster trucks in the basket. Examples of the high P maintenance instructions included sit down, and leisure high P instructions included drive your monster truck down the ramp. Their results demonstrated that while both high P sequences produced increases in compliance to low P instructions, the leisure high P sequence resulted in higher levels of compliance across all low P instructions, suggesting that topographical similarity between the high P and low P tasks may further increase the procedure's effectiveness. The high P sequence may particularly be useful when low P tasks include responses that cannot be prompted physically, such as vocal imitation, since it doesn't require the use of physical prompting. Previous research has shown that a sequence of rapid generalized motor imitations presented immediately prior to a vocal imitation instruction may effectively induce vocal verbal behavior. Baer et al. Found that a child with disabilities successfully imitated a vocal response when it was set into a chain of non-vocal motor imitation responses after failing to do so with the presentation of the vocal imitation response alone. The generalized motor imitation sequence was then successfully faded until the child was able to emit the vocal response after the presentation of the vocal model only. Vocal imitation responses were then shaped from simple sounds into words. Ross and Greer formally evaluated the generalized motor imitation as a tactic to promote vocal speech in children with autism. They tested the effects of the rapid motor imitation sequence on the vocal verbal behavior of 5 non-vocal children with autism using 2 multiple baseline across subject designs. Their results indicated a functional relationship between the RMI procedure and first instances of vocal speech. Follow-up sessions demonstrated that 4 of the participants continued to emit independent mands. Some limitations and recommendations for future research from that study were that the number of opportunities to respond was inconsistent across sessions. Motor imitation training conducted prior to the procedure was lengthy, taking some participants multiple years to complete. The contribution of various components of the treatment was not assessed. So explanations for the success of the treatment should be evaluated in future studies, such as the high P instructional sequence. Sori and Greer further evaluated the effectiveness of the RMI procedure by extending the tactic to test for the induction of vocal responses under the controlling variables of both the mand and tact functions. They tested the effects of the rapid motor imitation sequence on the vocal speech of 3 preschoolers with autism using 2 multiple baseline designs. And their results indicated a functional relationship between the RMI procedure and first instances of echoic and independent mands and tacts. They suggested that further research needed to test the effects of the RMI procedure without the presence of the controlling variables of the mand or tact. Hansen et al. Used a concurrent multiple baseline design across stimuli sets to test the effects of a high P motor imitation sequence on levels of compliance with vocal imitation in a 3-year-old male with autism. Vocal imitation responses were the emission of the same sound or word or an approximation said by the experimenter within 2 seconds. The high P motor imitation sequence consisted of 3 rapidly presented motor imitation instructions, which were varied across trials, immediately followed by a low P vocal imitation instruction. Their results indicated a functional relationship between the high P motor imitation instructional sequence and increases in compliance with vocal imitation instructions. Their limitations included that experimenters were not able to replicate the results with new sets or sounds due to the generalization of the skill. Only 1 participant was included. So future research should replicate the results using additional participants. Also, researchers should extend the results by further evaluating the contribution of the high P instructional sequence to increases in vocal speech. Previous studies have only tested the effects of the high P instructional sequence on vocal imitation when the high P sequence consisted of motor imitation. A formal evaluation of the effects of a high P sequence of other behaviors has yet to be conducted in relation to vocal verbal behavior. It's possible that the similarity in topography between the motor imitation and vocal imitation responses was a critical component to the success of the high P sequence. Additional research is necessary to investigate the role of topographical similarity in the effectiveness of the high P sequence when used to increase vocal imitation. So the purpose of the current study was to test the effects of the high P instructional sequence when it involved topographically dissimilar responses on inducing vocal verbal behavior. A multiple baseline design across participants was used to measure the effects of a high P sequence of 1-step directions on the number of correct vocal imitation responses emitted by 2 4-year-old boys diagnosed with autism. So my participants were 2 4-year-old boys diagnosed with autism. Prior to the study, they both attended an ABA clinic for at least 1 year. They did not emit echoics, mands, or tacts, and had been observed by experimenters to emit vocalizations in the free play setting, but did not emit vocal imitation responses following a vocal model. Both functioned on pre-verbal foundational levels of verbal behavior, and both followed 1-step directions and imitated motor movements. The study took place in a private ABA clinic that implemented the CABAS model. All sessions were conducted in a small room consisting of 2 child-sized tables with 2 chairs each, a desk, and a toy shelf. To minimize any potential distractions, only the participant, the experimenter, and sometimes an independent observer were present during sessions. Materials included a child-sized table, 2 child-sized chairs, preferred items such as kinetic sand, a stress ball, and a variety of cause-effect toys. 20 vocal imitation targets such as B, Wa, O, 2, paper data sheets, and black pens. My dependent variable was the number of correct vocal imitation responses. So those were the low P instructions. Examples are D, car, POW. My independent variable was the high P instructional sequence. It consisted of 3 rapidly presented one-step directions immediately followed by a low P instruction of vocal imitation. Examples included clap your hands, tap your tummy, touch your nose. A multiple baseline design across participants was used. A return to baseline phase was also conducted following the end of the intervention phase. All sessions consisted of 20 trials each. Each phase was implemented until steady state responding of the dependent variable was demonstrated or the participant reached a predetermined criterion of 18 correct responses or higher across 2 consecutive sessions. During both baseline and intervention phases, correct vocal imitation responses were recorded with a plus and resulted in praise and access to a preferred item for 10 to 15 seconds. Incorrect vocal imitation responses were recorded with a minus and resulted in the end of the trial. And then we just moved on to the next one. In the baseline phase, each trial consisted of the presentation of a low P instruction only. The experimenter sat across from the participant at a table, gained his attention, and presented a low P vocal imitation instruction such as B. A return to baseline phase was also conducted following the end of the intervention phase. Procedures during the return to baseline phase were identical to the initial baseline. During the intervention phase, each trial consisted of the presentation of a sequence of 3 high P one-step directions, immediately followed by 1 low P vocal imitation instruction. The experimenter sat across from the participant at a table, gained his attention, and presented 3 one-step directions in rapid succession with an intertrial latency of 1 second. Praise was delivered upon a correct response to a high P instruction. Presentation of the vocal imitation instruction was contingent upon the participant correctly responding to all 3 high P instructions. If the participant responded incorrectly to any of the high P instructions, the sequence was terminated and started again. So these are my results so far. While the results of the current study so far indicate that topographical similarity between the high P and low P responses may not be necessary, the findings of Esch and Freiling suggest that topographical similarity may increase the effectiveness of the procedure. So further research should evaluate the role of topographical similarity in the success of the high P sequence when used to increase vocal speech. I think it would be cool to compare like one-step directions, large motor imitation, and oral motor imitation, since oral motor imitation is pretty much as close as it gets to the vocal imitation. All right, and these are my references. Okay.
All right. Awesome job. Any thoughts for Christine? Throw your graph back up.
I was going to say the same thing.
Wait, can you still see it?
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Because my graph compared to your graph, I tried so hard to put the, oh my God, it spent like hours. I'm like, I still can't get it. So me and you're gonna have a chit chat because I'm trying to get it right.
Well, one, it is a beautiful graph. 2, Christine, obviously there's a single additional data point from the last time I saw, I guess 2, there was 1 more baseline in there. And you have a replication there. So watching that is going to be really, really interesting. The topographical similarity. Now, I haven't harped on this when it comes to novel behaviors, which is really what you're looking at here, teaching behaviors. But I have harped on this in terms of behavior momentum and the necessity of using topographically similar behaviors to effectively use behavior momentum when you're getting low P response, but a different type of low P response, right? Related to EO versus, as Dr. Greer would say, you're basically just tricking the kid into imitating a behavior they didn't know how they could imitate. But this one, when we met and we saw these data, I was like, that blew my mind. So that's really, really cool. And I want to, when you get something like this, a finding that kind of bucks the trend a little bit, I think it becomes really, really important to really go back and analyze who the participants were, how the procedures were the same, how they were different, what were the stimuli. Look at those minute differences to try and explain why you got a finding that is different than what was expected, which is what happened here. So just so everyone else kind of knows, when Christina and I set out to start this, the goal was, let's do this phase and show that it doesn't work, and then move to the thing that does work. And we never got there because it worked. And that was really, really cool. And I look forward to extending it and hopefully being able to see the same type of thing. But this type, when you guys have all heard me say before at some point in some class, research doesn't prove, right? Research doesn't prove. Research shows evidence for and potentially disproves. This doesn't disprove anything, but it shows evidence for another side of the coin, something else to look at. And I think that experience of finding something you were not expecting to find is invaluable. And I hope you enjoyed collecting the data and stopping halfway through and being like, I shouldn't be seeing this right now, right? And just that piece of the scientific process is very valuable, and it goes to show why we don't develop our procedures before we read the literature. We minimize the assumptions that we make before we start our research. We don't have our outcomes predicted. We can hypothesize, but you cannot set the contingencies to only show success. And I really liked what you said in the lit review, where there is some research saying that it might have more of an effect. Topographically similar might have more of an effect. And had we just jumped straight to that, then we would have seen an effect, and we'd be left out to dry with these data. And now we have to find out a way to, with control, test for effect size, I guess I should say. So I love what you did here. I love that we got a finding that we weren't expecting, and keep at it. Really, really cool job. Really, really good job. Yeah. Anything that you saw or experienced or read about that you want to elaborate on kind of outside of your scripted presentation here?
I need to add this in to my paper somehow, but I know in the original rapid motor imitation papers in those studies, I don't think that they reinforced the high P instructions. I didn't see that anywhere, but I made sure that I did just because the research suggested that you do that with the high P sequence. Also, I really tried to make it as fun as possible, like a game, and I think that had a lot to do with its success.
Okay. So those are types of things. The first one, kind of what we were talking about with Courtney's lit review. The first one, you want to emphasize that change in your lit review. Don't save it until the end. And if you did say that and I missed it, I apologize. But you want to, if there's a hole in the literature, or if there's something that you're doing that you think is going to explain a different effect, you want to bring that to the reader's attention at the forefront. You don't want to like hold on to that. This, however you want to do it. And then when it works or doesn't work, you can then come back to that and say, we saw something different, and remember, this is what I did differently. And really, really harp on that. Okay, cool.
I have a quick question for Christine.
Yeah.
Christine, how did you choose this participant? Like, what was like his repertoire? Did I miss that? I may have.
So they were participants that both followed one-step direction. Well, originally I was thinking more of the rapid motor imitation procedure. So both of these participants imitated motor movements. They also followed one-step directions, which is what I ended up going with. But they both emitted lots of vocalizations in the free play setting. So I knew that they could make the sounds, they could make those vocal sounds, but they would not imitate them when given a model. So that's kind of why I chose both of them.
I think that is, relative to relative to what you said about reinforcement and the reinforcement that you provided. Sounds like you're effectively bringing the context of the play setting to the same behavior at the table. Yeah?
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of what you said. It kind of cut out.
Where you're taking the context of the play area with the behavior that is emitted in the play area and bringing that to the table.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like we were having fun. We had toys. It was like a game.
So there is a little bit of transformation of stimulus function through EOs happening there, right? So that same behavior, different context, different reinforcement in the conditioned EO is transferring from one setting to another and controlling those behaviors. I don't want to spin this in too much of a new direction. But looking at it that way, that's what relational frame theory is talking about. That is what relational frame theory is how they're explaining novel behavior. It's not something new that blossoms. It's these EOs and these conditioned reinforcers moving and controlling behaviors in new contexts and settings. That's one way of looking at that. That's really cool. That's really cool. All right, cool. Any other thoughts for Christine? Well done. Very, very, very well done. Awesome. Okay, Isaac, I'm gonna let you off the hook for tonight. Let's move it to next week. Next week, I am teaching the early class. So I will make sure we are done at 6:30 so we can jump on right away and make sure that we get through every presentation. So aim for 6:30 for next week, and we will jump right into our presentations. Okay? Sound good? Okay, cool. Any questions? Clarissa, you got a question? Yeah,
Always.
Courtney, see his hand as well.
I was gonna ask about the Mentor 5 assignment.
Okay.
What's the expectation there?
Oh, I don't know.
Because right now it just says like a summary or something like that.
Yeah.
What, like a page, like.
Yeah, I want more than that.
Okay.
I don't have a clear expectation for you. I don't. I could make one up. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let you guys, I want you to be able to reflect on the experience. Period. Whatever that means to you, that's what I want to see. I could ask you all sorts of leading questions about, what reflect means, but I don't want to do that. You guys are almost all about to graduate. You are all analytic thinkers. You are all scientists in your own right. You've written too many discussion sections for me to have to tell you what to reflect on. I want you to reflect on what is meaningful to your experience. Okay? However much that takes, go, do it. Does that work? Can you all live with that kind of gray assignment? Some of you I know don't like that type of thing, Clarissa. There are others of you I'm just calling out, Clarissa. All right, any other questions? Yeah, Courtney.
I'm always with the questions. Me and Clarissa with the questions. So I think you mentioned this last time, but just want to double make sure. For BDS modules, so I did the acquisitions. So I submitted 10, like 8 and 2 the last time for the midterm.
Yeah.
And I'm running low on acquisitions for like G and B. You said to do more fluencies to get you to 10 modules. Was that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, cool. And then one more, would you mind posting the poster template?
Yeah, you emailed me about that.
Yeah,
Yes, I will do that. I have your email as unread, so I know it's a thing that I need to do. Yeah, I will. Dr. G and I are finalizing what we're going to do for poster night. We have a good idea of what we want to do, so you guys will get that info very soon. Should be in the next couple of days. Okay. Oh, May 3rd, the evening of May 3rd. We have a search committee for going for an undergrad primarily, but undergrad/grad position open. And we are going to be doing some demo lessons. So the evening of May 3rd, I may ask that you guys serve as an audience for a demo lesson for a couple of our interviewees. You okay with that? Good with that? Okay, cool. All right, awesome. I think that's it. I have a meeting with one of you, hop off and then hop back on. And for everyone else, I will see you next week when we finish up. All right, have a good one, guys. Bye.